think of construction, one of the first things that come to mind is concrete. This widely used construction material is literally the backbone of the construction industry. But before we can become successful in the concrete scope of work, we have to understand the precautions we must take to ensure our safety and the safety of others during concrete operation. Our objectives for today are: 1. We need to be able to understand the importance of a well-working safety culture in the workplace and how you can support it. 2. Describe the role of the Occupational Health and Safety Administration and what your responsibilities and rights are. Lastly, identify common types of hazards on site that can cause serious injury or worse, a fatality. So, what does a job site look like that does not have a working safety culture? Well, there are a couple of things that you can almost immediately point out when you observe the activity on site. One of the first things you will notice is a lot of at-risk behavior. Nobody's tied off, housekeeping is poor, or individuals jumping over spots that have no access. Another thing you will notice is the poor planning for the operation. No one seems to have what they need, and people generally look lost. Then, the lack of training. Operators with no seatbelt on and craft walking down ladders without 3 points of contact. Basically, the job site has developed a culture that has failed to support their craft and give them the tools they need to recognize hazards to not only protect themselves, but others around them. And we all know that truly experienced craft workers understand the commitment to safety and that their hazard recognition abilities will be tested every day out on the job. If you are still confused on the importance of safety, then let me spell it out for you. We don't want anyone to get hurt or die in the process of construction. We spend more time with each other than we do with our own families, and we should all make sure we get back to them with all our fingers and toes. That's why we are committed to keeping you and everyone around you safe. But here's the thing, we cannot do it without your help. We need everyone working responsibly and safety to ensure our main goal to provide a healthy and safe working environment. We encourage you to help our inexperienced craft with hazard recognition because we all know they are at the most risk, and they are in many cases the source of the accidents and near misses on site, even though they are not always the one getting injured. So when you get a chance, mentor our inexperienced craft and hazard recognition, and who knows, the life you save may be your own. At this point, you may be asking yourself what makes an effective safety culture. Well, let me tell you. First, we need to have or maintain a sound safety policy, which we do have. This policy needs to be understood and incorporated out in the field with a good attitude. Second, this policy should be communicated throughout our leadership, both in the field and in the office. We must leverage our strong leadership skills out in the field to involve and encourage the commitment of our policies by our craft, subcontractors, and field personnel. Remember, if the policy is not understood, agreed upon, or not effectively communicated, the policy will not translate out in the field where it is needed the most. And finally, we need to actively train our personnel with positive reinforcement the necessary safety skills needed for each type of operation, as well as how to adapt to the changing conditions of our projects day to day. Let's take a closer look at the role of the Occupational Safety and Health Administration. It is their mission to enforce that companies provide a safe and healthy environment. To do this, they have created several parts of the Code of Federal Regulations. In construction, we focus on parts 1926 and 1910. 1926, concentrating on construction, and 1910, containing the general industry standards. With these standards, we have all the information we need to ensure we can create site, specific safety plans, and job hazard analysis forms to promote our safety culture. But what are you and your employer's responsibilities? Well, under the General Duty Clause, each employer shall furnish to all employees a place that is free of hazards that can cause death or serious injury. They also must provide training and personal protective equipment for operations that have these types of hazards. What about your responsibilities? You have to follow the safety rules, wear personal protective equipment, and participate in the training provided by the employer. I also like to mention that you have the right to address any issues with your supervisor and report any issues if not corrected. You are also protected by Section 11C of the OSH Act from any discrimination or discipline if you do decide to report any issues. For more information, I encourage you to reach out and get your 10-hour safety course where you can learn more about this subject. There are several ways that concrete can be a hazard. 1 is skin contact, 2 inhalation, and 3 the handling and forming of the concrete. Let's first focus on skin contact. For many people, concrete can have adverse effects to their skin and health when they come in contact with it. Cement is alkaline or has a high pH level. Cement is highly caustic or corrosive. Once you mix dry cement with water, it has a pH of 10 to 12 on a scale of 14. That level of pH is high enough to cause chemical burns on unbroken skin with extended contact. If that's not enough, Portland cement also contains the metal hexavalent chromium. It's the toxic chromium that sensitizes your skin and causes contact dermatitis. Hexavalent chromium has been classified as a carcinogen or causes cancer. Certain epoxies, accelerators, water reducers, superplasticizers, retardants, and other admixtures in concrete can also have a sensitizing effect. Concrete is also highly abrasive, creating microscopic cuts and scrapes on your skin. This allows the alkaline, toxic substance to contact deeper tissues and worsen the injury. That is why we must use the right personal protective equipment such as gloves, long-sleeve shirts, safety glasses, face shields, and waterproof boots to prevent the concrete contacting our skin and causing injury. And if we come in contact, we have to wash off the concrete with plenty of clean water and contact your supervisor immediately. Skin exposure is only one of the hazards, and most fail to recognize that the dust created when working with concrete can also have consequences. Whether we are cutting control joints, grinding surfaces, sweeping the floors, demolishing sections, or drilling holes for epoxy anchors, those types of activities cause plumes of silica dust. When this dust is inhaled, silica dust particles, which are 100 times smaller than a grain of sand, enter the lungs and can cause severe and sometimes fatal diseases. This risk is exponentially increased by long-term exposure. Just think about this material collecting in your lungs and solidifying slowly and leaving those parts of your lung unable to absorb oxygen. The majority of these diseases are irreversible and many can be fatal. Crystalline silica is a known carcinogen and can put workers at a highly elevated risk for lung cancer, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, and kidney failure. Exposure to respirable crystalline silica has also been linked to the development of autoimmune disorders and cardiovascular impairment. We must protect ourselves and those around us when we are cutting, drilling, or grinding concrete by using exposure management. Exposure management is a plan to use water, marking off areas of exposure, vacuums for dust collection, and having the right personal protective equipment, like a mask, to protect ourselves and others in the area. Now that we can understand the hazards of skin exposure and inhalation, we can focus on the handling and forming hazards of concrete. Each concrete operation should be carefully planned and communicated before any activities start. Concrete is delivered to the site in 2 ways: by truck or by hand. If we are getting the concrete by truck, we can expect a fully loaded truck mixer that typically weighs approximately 30 tons to show up. Most of the time, these trucks will have to be backed into position and will need a spotter. Poor ground conditions can lead to delays or rollovers. Also expect caught between hazards and equipment crush points when backing up the mixer to either the pump truck or close to the placement area. When shooting the concrete, it can splatter drops around the hopper or forms which could come in contact with your skin. Having eye protection and other PPE to cover your skin is a must. Mixing on site can be hazardous as well. Transporting 60 to 80-pound bags of concrete, if lifted improperly, can cause back strain. Opening the bags release silica dust into the air. Mixing the concrete in the buckets release dust and splatters droplets that can come in contact with your skin. Improper use of the hand mixer can twist your wrists and cause spraining. Then bringing those loads to the area by hand can lead to other types of awkward movements that can cause further sprains or falls. Most of the time, transporting concrete by hand is cumbersome and requires an amount of energy from the crew that can be exhausting. So, we like to use equipment to transport our loads of concrete to the placement areas. There are 3 basic types of equipment we will use to do so. For short, Level runs, we can use the wheelbarrow. A useful tool, but can also be a hazard if it is overloaded or the access to the placement area is not cleared and prepped for it. Concrete buckets are great, but the risk factor is increased. We will need to understand load charts and have a pick plan in place to use the crane. With a crane comes the requirement of certified riggers, spotters, and a single crane operator. Having 4,500-pound bucket full of liquid concrete flying over the site is risky business and must be treated in a professional manner. If even a small amount of concrete falls from the bucket, it can be deadly. Lastly, we have the concrete power buggy or Georgia buggy. Another great way to transport large amounts of concrete, but also is heavy when loaded. Needs a spotter, pre-planned access routes, and can injure the operator or other workers in the area if not operated properly. All these types of equipment are great for transporting concrete, but all these types of operations still need to be planned and communicated to the entire team. When communicating the plan with your team, here are some hand signals identified by the Occupational Safety and Health Administration for spotters when backing up equipment. Before each operation, make sure both the operator and the spotter understand these signals. A properly developed plan will include these signals and will review them, so we are using clear communication out in the field. There have been many documented incidents where the operator and spotter failed to communicate the hand signals properly, which led to injury. Don't let that situation happen on your site. We also have to consider formwork to be a part of our concrete safety discussion. Not only is the formwork difficult to construct, but there are plenty of hazards during this operation. During horizontal formwork, it is easy to have slips, trips, and falls over the edge forms or while on the welded wire mesh. Dowels can be protruding from the rebar mats to tie into the soon-to-be cast-in-place walls or masonry. Make sure that all exposed rebar is capped to prevent injury and always keep your eyes on your path. Access is key and must be planned out. Remember to never run or engage in horseplay. Climbing up vertical formwork is forbidden unless you have been part of the planning for this operation and the proper provisions for fall protection are in place. Falling down on exposed rebar and mats in these types of areas is not a joke and a sure way to have a hospital visit. Just keep in mind that most of the formwork constructed are not designed to climb on or act as a walkway. Unless we are installing a reusable form system that are designed to support attachments such as add-on walkways, anchor points, or ladders, make sure you ask the competent person before climbing or walking on the formwork to be sure it can support your weight. Forms are designed to hold imposed loads from a specific direction, usually the head pressure that the concrete is creating from the inside of the formwork. When climbing above 6 feet, we will need to utilize some form of fall protection like a harness, lanyard, and suitable anchor point in place before walking or climbing on the forms. Every operation needs a hazard analysis during a team huddle before we start. Thanks for watching, and remember, you are the key to our company's success and safety. See you out there on site.
Yeah.